Bottlebrush grass, Elymus hystrix. It's our 2025 plant of the year, and we love it for a lot of reasons. But one of the things that I think about first, before I think about where to use bottlebrush grass, I think about where does it grow. Because getting the right plant in the right place, as we say here at Hamilton Native Outpost, is super important to the success. If you want to buy seeds of the plant, you want it to be successful. You want it to grow where you plant it. So I think of it in these part shade situations. If I picture it in my mind, close my eyes and just picture this plant, that's what I'm thinking of, is this dappled sunlight coming through the trees. The bottlebrush is growing there in that dappled sunlight, but obviously it does well in a full sun situation. So it grows in a variety of sun and shade situations, but I will say I wouldn't put it in a real wet soil. It'll do well in a fairly dry soil or a good soil. This here where this is growing is, I would call it mesic, which kind of means a Goldilocks soil, not too wet, not too dry. So an excellent plant for dry to mesic sites that are either full sun or quite a bit of shade. Maybe not full shade, but quite a bit of shade. And so that is an excellent way to use this grass, whether it's full sun or my favorite situation in the part shade with wildflowers that are also adapted to that situation. That's how I really like to see it. But another excellent use of this grass is as wildlife habitat. So this grass is almost, some of them are approaching 6 foot tall, but on average it's 5 foot tall out here. And what this does, and that the height will depend on your soils. The drier the soils, the less tall your plant will get. That's a general rule of thumb. I think of this plant and I look at, from the structure standpoint, we've got this column of grass. And of course, behind me is just this mass of it, but oftentimes it doesn't grow in this thick stand like this. So you've got this column of grass that just stands really well. These seed heads and the plant itself will go into winter standing like this, but of course they'll be brown after they make seed here. And then it starts to grow green grass down at the base during that fall, winter, spring time frame. But from the wildlife habitat standpoint, here we are in mid-June, and I've got 5 foot cover or 5 foot structure for, doesn't matter if you're a quail, a rabbit, a pollinator that needs a place to get in under to do your thing. You've got nice structure around here. So from the wildlife standpoint, I love it just as much as I do from the wildflower meadow or the aesthetic standpoint. Now I will say from the wildlife standpoint, it's not a food source necessarily for wildlife. It's not known for that. What it's known as is just having structure. And that tends to be a rule of thumb. All the grasses tend to provide that structure. And the forbs or wildflowers, those are just two words for the same thing. They tend to provide more food source. And it depends on what type of wildlife we're talking about. But again, love it from the landscaping standpoint, wildflower meadow standpoint, love it from the wildlife standpoint. This grass also makes an excellent forage grass. If livestock is your thing and you have, whether it's small ruminants, whether it's bison, whether it's cattle, whatever livestock you might have, this makes an excellent forage for them. Not now, this is a little past its prime. But we've got a whole nother video exploring that. So if your interest is in forage, check that out. And of course, from the restoration standpoint, that, either restoring or recreating rare and declining habitats. So savannas and woodlands that are gone, that are just degraded or one way or another have been changed from the historical land cover. If changing back to historical land cover is your concern, this was a very common plant in those savannas, in those woodlands, in a large region. And so it's one that you may want to consider, look at, was that historically in my area? Or maybe your concern is not so much, I just want, a mix that's native to my general area, not exactly to my county or something. So you can do as much research as you want or not, but I really think of it in those restorations where there's at least a little bit of shade. Let's go explore how this grass looks in some other situations, especially a wildflower meadow, and explore kind of how it's looking from the wildlife standpoint as well when it's not in mass like this, but when it's mixed with other things. When I think of bottlebrush grass, this is what I think of. In this forest glade, and glade of course has this other meaning of like being a shallow to bedrock, and that's not what I'm talking about in this particular situation, but this forest opening, dappled sunlight sort of situation. This is what I think of with bottlebrush grass. And obviously it tolerates full sun where we just were, but this is if I close my eyes and think about it, this is what I think about. And as I think about and look at what we've got here, of course, we've got the bottlebrush grass. But while that other was more or less a pure stand-up bottlebrush grass, this here is not. You can see this black-eyed Susan. This is a common black-eyed Susan. And there's coneflowers. This is a purple coneflower. It will bloom here in a little while. So in these heavy shaded, this is not 100% shade. We're probably at 80%. And this has been being burned. So there is some management other than just leaf fall on top of these plants. But in these situations, the bottlebrush grass really shines. And then to mix in some of the diversity with it is a beautiful thing. So not only from the aesthetic standpoint is it pretty, both the bottlebrush grass and its cool green colored seed heads, but then the wildflowers you can put with it are also beautiful. From the wildlife structure standpoint, of course, we've got these clumps, and this is quite a bit shorter bottlebrush grass than what it was out in the full sun with better soils. So we've got this neat situation here where we've got this structure. So the animals can get in under and hide here, but of course then there's food plants with it. The wildflowers and their seeds, the insects that they draw. So bottlebrush grass is a wonderful plant. It's one that we really love and are really interested in. I'm Elizabeth with Hamilton Native Outpost, where bottlebrush grass is our 2025 plant of the year because we love it so much. If you're interested in learning more about bottlebrush grass, want to order seeds of bottlebrush grass, check out our website at hamiltonnativeoutpost.com.